Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Energize Your Online Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys, today we are going to dig into the F word. Now, wait a minute. Before you send these kids out of the room.
This is a PG podcast.
It's not that F word. And it's also not forgiveness, which I think is often the other F word in kind of spiritual circles. No, we're going to talk about failure, which actually really kind of feels like the worst F word, especially for a business owner. Now, we've talked in previous episodes, and we'll include show notes to it, about what you can actually earn as a course creator and how big your business can get. But we do have to face the reality that a lot of businesses do not succeed. A very, very large percentage of businesses end up having to close their doors. And yes, unfortunately, that does include course creators. But what we want to talk about today is what some of the most common and most impactful reasons are people have to end up having to close the doors in their business. And knowing this, we want to help you keep those things from happening to your own business. So we're going to be dropping that F word, the failure, not the other one.
Maybe the other one.
Yes, my hope. I certainly hope not. We are AG rated. We'll bleep it out for the purpose of helping us all to avoid it completely so that we can have long, profitable, healthy businesses that not just help us as course creators and as business owners, but also help all of our audience, our purchasers. What we have created has impacts on people's lives, positive impacts on people's lives. So we want to get this to as many people as possible. And we can't do that if we're not in business. So let's dig in. Yeah.
Well, it's a good transition to the first one because we do have things that can transform people's lives. But on the off chance that you are selling a program that doesn't deliver on what it promises. So obviously you're not selling a scam. You're not saying one thing and delivering another thing, but your messaging might not exactly hit in a way that resonates with your customers. And they might be thinking they're getting one thing and you might be thinking you're communicating another thing. And then there's a disconnect and they feel like they're not getting what was promised. And so, yes, is there the reality too that you could be promising something and completely not delivering it and saying, hey, yeah, as part of this program, you're going to get one-on-one coaching with me. And oops, you don't actually offer that, but it's still in your messaging. Yeah, there is that possibility too, but
don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. But I think it's more the nuance with how we're messaging what we offer and making sure that everything we say we are delivering on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. We're going to talk a lot about in our messaging, we're going to talk about the transformation that people experience when they take our programs, because that's what it's all about, right? Nobody buys a course because they want a course. They buy a course because they want the experience of the transformation, the promise. But to Kate's point, if what you're promising is not actually what they're going to get out of it, then they're going to be upset. They might ask for their money back. They might tell other people. You might get bad reviews on the internet. And I'm not saying that, or we're not saying that your course has to be absolutely perfect and it has to be the end all be all or it has to solve every single possible problem or it has to offer guarantees like crazy. That's not the case. But you do have to just be very careful to make sure that the things that you do promise or the outcome that you want to help them experience is something that your course can actually help them experience.
Mm-hmm. And being honest about what it takes to get that experience. Because, I think about our programs and we're very transparent about the work that needs to be involved. You don't just buy the course and then the transformation happens. There is some level of investment and commitment needed from the customer to get whatever it is out of your program. And so making sure they have a very clear understanding of what that is. Obviously, we don't want to overwhelm people and make it seem like it's not possible by any means, but I think it's important that they go in with a clear idea of what's expected of them, because it's a two-way exchange, really. You're offering the steps that they need for this transformation, or you're offering the support, or you're offering any combination of whatever it is you're offering to make this possible. But it requires some level of engagement from the customer to get that done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you're taking notes, the action step for this one is to take a look at your marketing materials with a fresh eye. What are you promising? Is it what they can actually experience within your program? Have you oversold it? Or on the other side, have you undersold it? Are you not speaking to what they want and need to hear? It can be tricky to separate ourselves from our marketing messages, but as much as possible, step away and come back with your customer hat on and view it from their perspective.
Yeah. And even getting on the call with some of your customers, yes. Incentivize them if you need to. If like, hey, if you jump on a 30-minute call with me, I'll give you $10 to Amazon or whatever it is. But talking with them and seeing what they have to say, and you might get some fresh insights and perspective there.
Exactly. Next on our list of ways that entrepreneurs can get themselves in trouble is not investing in the tools and resources that will help them grow, or even not investing in the tools or resources that will help them stabilize as a business. I know that certainly we have to be wise about where we spend our money. It maybe eventually we'll all get to the place where we can just spend willy-nilly and it'll be wonderful. But
Can't wait.
It's going to be great. But until that place, we have to be judicious about how we spend our money. Absolutely. You need to weigh the pros and the cons of every piece of software, every course. Is it going to pay for itself and then some? Absolutely. But I think the mistake that a lot of business owners make is they try to save money everywhere. Or they let a past negative experience affect all of their experiences in the future. I can't tell you how many times I have heard from business owners, well, I bought a course before and it really, really didn't work, so I'm not going to buy courses for a while. Well, that just, when you really think about it, it doesn't actually make sense. Just because one course didn't work doesn't mean that another one isn't going to. And quite frankly, if you bought a course and it didn't work, you still have that problem and you still need to find the solution to that problem, maybe even more so because now time has passed. And if you didn't know how to solve it then without the course, you still don't know how to solve it without a course. So in a lot of ways, investing in a course that didn't work is actually an argument for investing in a future course because you need to solve that problem. I forget who said it. I want to say maybe it was Alex Hormozy or someone, some business person like that who said something along the lines of, okay, well, did you have your heart broken when you were in middle school or in high school? And, pretty much everybody.
Thanks for bringing up trauma, Nikki.
Part 2 of the podcast. We'll get into that. But everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't let that negative experience stop us from pursuing love in the future. And it's the same thing with investing in courses or investing in software. If you had a bad experience with it, that can't stop you from investing in learning going forward. We don't have the luxury to just not learn anymore. Business is not going to keep going well for us.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of a good analogy for this, but I think it's like when you say you saw a bunny rabbit that had 6 toes on its foot, and then just making the assumption that every bunny rabbit has 6 toes on its foot. I feel like it's a similar thing. And or take a human, or you had a bad experience with a teacher growing up, and then all teachers are terrible. It's lumping everything into the same bucket, which just if you actually take a step back, it just doesn't make sense. It's a very emotional reaction to that information, and I think this happens a lot too with hiring. Maybe you worked with a designer on a project and they didn't deliver what you wanted. And so now you're hesitant to reach out to another designer and think, okay, I can just do it myself, and not thinking about the cost of that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I thought of an analogy.
Yeah. Oh, please.
It's
I love an analogy.
If you have dinner and unfortunately you get food poisoning.
Oh, yeah.
That's the crummy experience. So sorry that happened to you, but you're not going to let that keep you from eating a meal ever again. That's what I have for you.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have an entire episode, I believe, on investment versus purchase, because really that's what this is. You need to look at things that are going to deliver a return on your investment, that, you put $400 towards a course or $1,000 towards a program or whatever it is, or hire someone at $25 an hour, but you get how much of your time back, and your time is valued at a much higher rate than that. So those are the types of things you want to invest in versus purchases. The only thing I think of is like a fax machine, but like,
yeah, you don't need those.
You don't need those. No.
Yeah. But investments.
Yeah. And we'll link to that episode though, of how to start to kind of switch that mindset. So yeah, we will link to that entire episode so that if you want to listen to more, you certainly can.
The next one has to do with, in a small view, in kind of looking at it through a small window pane, the concept of not setting deadlines. But I would say, letting things, well, I'll just get it done eventually. I'll get it
Mhm.
done. I'll finish my course soon. Or not setting deadlines for your customers. We know that they won't buy if they don't have a deadline. But I would even say that not setting a deadline is actually kind of indicative of a bigger problem often.
Mm.
It's indicative of not treating your business like a
Mm.
business. You see business owners say, well, I'll get to that. Well, I want to do that, but I haven't gotten to that. And not that we have to execute on every single thing that we think of, but if we're not setting deadlines for ourselves and our teams, and if we're not, for the most part, usually hitting those deadlines, that indicates a bigger problem. And no business is going to run for very long if stuff just doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and along with this is prioritizing those deadlines, because if we're thinking about failure, and I mean, maybe we should have started off by defining failure, but really, when a business fails, you're not making money, right? You have to close your doors because you can't sustain your livelihood, and it's just becomes untenable to run the business. And so, thinking about it through that lens, these deadlines. It's crucial if you are in a place of, is my business going to survive or fail? Is it going to make it? Then you need to be looking at the things that are going to bring in money for your business. And everything else can wait. Everything else can either have a longer deadline, or maybe you don't put a deadline on it because it's not crucial to running your business in this moment. And so focusing on the thing that is going to bring in money and setting a deadline for that. And obviously, setting deadlines can be tricky in terms of holding ourselves accountable, making sure we manage our time in the correct way to hit that deadline. Not saying I'm going to finish my entire course tomorrow, and that's unrealistic if you have months worth of content left to create. But I think there's also an element too with deadlines of phasing this out to say, okay, what's the minimum viable thing I need to get out the door and that I can add to later? I've been thinking about this a lot lately of this YouTube creator that I started watching. I'm not going to name it because it's a time suck. But her original videos, when she, 4 years ago started out, were so bare bones, no background, no bells and whistles. She barely had makeup on. The audio and video quality was not great. But she built her business from that. And now there's a much higher production value with, lights, sounds, editors clearly involved, and it's night and day. And so I think thinking about courses in that sense too, of what do I need to get out that can actually transform people's lives, and what can come and be layered on later when I'm making money. I can hire a designer later to make this prettier and spruce it up, but is that necessary? Obviously, if you're selling a program about design, maybe design is crucial to that that course. But if you're doing something that has nothing to do with it, then can it be pretty basic? And can you add kind of the nice to haves down the line? And so setting your deadlines in a way that prioritizes what actually matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too that when it comes to what actually matters, it's very easy to get distracted by the shiny things or what other people are doing,
Yes.
other ideas that you've heard, things that aren't directly going to bring in revenue. Like, well, I could do this thing that's going to bring in revenue, or I could do this thing that my customers have been asking for, and I'd have to give it to them for free. And it's not really part of what I promised them in this program, but they have been asking for. Now, don't get me wrong, that if you are able to add that, great. And it feels like it's in alignment with your business, that's great. But if your priority is to make money, then you have to do the thing that's going to bring in revenue first. And I think it's really easy to get distracted when we're running our businesses and when we're coming up with projects. On top of the fact too, that sometimes we will have planned things out for the year, for the quarter, even sometimes just for the month. We'll have planned things, and this is what we're going to work on. And it can feel almost like a failure to say, "Ooh, no, we're actually not going to do this.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this instead." And I will absolutely say that when I've had to put a pause on a project that the team is working on, I hate that feeling. It makes me feel like I've done something wrong. And I know that my team does not. I know that you guys don't think this way, but it makes me feel like I've done something wrong. It makes me feel like I'm scattered. It makes me feel like I'm not focused. But what actually it is me refocusing and going, you know what? I know that this was the plan. I know that we thought that this was going to be the most important thing coming into this quarter. But as I'm looking at what's going on with our programs, as I'm looking at all of the other different factors, it's actually not this that we're still going to work on this. Absolutely. This will probably be next quarter, but this quarter, instead, we're going to be working on this project. It can be a really hard thing to do. It sounds like it's so simple. Just go, well, we're going to do this instead of this. But it's actually, it can be, especially if you're like me and your personality is very much tied to your business. Your sense of worth is very much tied to your business. We'll have another episode about that.
We should.
But yeah, right. Let's dig into that.
Why have we done that? Yeah.
But it's necessary. And even if it makes you uncomfortable, I mean, this is business, right? We do things that make us uncomfortable every day because that's what we have to do. You have to sometimes switch the focus of the team. Explain to them why you're doing it. Certainly don't do it haphazardly, and do it with deliberation. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. If it's not the most important thing anymore, then it can't be what you work on.
Yeah. And there's an element too, I think, of reminding yourself that you have more information now than you did when we planned the quarter, maybe, and things change that are outside of the control of the business too. So thinking about things that matter and focusing on things that matter, I think one of the best places to go to really get insight into this is your numbers of knowing, how are things going? Are things heading for failure? As in heading for, I don't have much more runway in terms of time I can spend working on my business before things are really dire.
Yeah. The fact is that you can't know the output unless you have a good sense of the input, right? I want to make this amount of money. Okay, well, what are the numbers that go into that? Unfortunately, I think a lot of business owners are kind of afraid of digging too deeply into their numbers. Well, I know I want to have my first 6-figure year. I want to have a multiple 6-figure year. I want to have a 7-figure year. And that's great. And they think, all right, well, I know how much my course is, so I'll just multiply that. And unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. You have to have a good sense of, where are your leads coming from? How many leads are you getting on your email list every month? How are they? What is the conversion percentage? What percentage of people who get on your list actually make that purchase? What are the percentage of people who open your emails? What are all of these kinds of things? If you're running ads, then you really have to know your numbers. Although I'll be the first one to tell you that way back when I was running my ads, I didn't bother. And not in a good way. I didn't bother to understand my numbers. They said, if you run ads for $10 a day on Facebook, you can make sales. And so I ran ads for $10 a day on Facebook without at all looking at what was my cost per lead, how many leads was I getting in, all of this kind of thing. And so no wonder it didn't work. If you're running ads, you need to understand what is your cost per lead? What percentage of people are clicking through? What percentage of people are opting in on the landing page? All of these things. And I know it sounds like a lot, but once you understand what they are and what they're supposed to be, then you can take action on them. Trying to run a business without understanding your numbers is trying to fly an airplane without being able to see any of the dials. Just kind of going, all right, we're in the air, and maybe not being able to see the dials and being in the clouds. And maybe it's clouds, maybe it's fog, and going, all right, I think, well, we're right. I don't feel the ground. So we're off the ground. We're flying. Okay. I don't know how close we're to the ground. And I'm not actually sure where we're
This is my worst nightmare, by the way.
I know. Am I describing it a little bit too?
Yeah, a little bit too.
Yeah. Take a deep breath there. Yeah. But
it's stress level at.
Yeah, right. Check the Garmin.
Yeah.
But you are asking for trouble trying to run a business without doing the uncomfortable thing for many of us, putting on the CEO hat, or maybe for that matter, putting on the CFO hat, and digging into what are the actual metrics within your business. It's about taking your business seriously as a business. And one of the first ways to do that is to really dig in and understand all of your numbers.
Yeah. And then once you have the foundation of the numbers, though, to have a regular recurring meeting with yourself to look at those numbers and continue to understand them, because they will evolve. I think if people, you have a 30% opt-in rate on your opt-in page, but then suddenly that dips to 25%, that could make a huge difference into whether or not you're going to be profitable or not. Same thing on sales. Maybe you're converting at a 2% conversion rate, and then that starts to dip. Or knowing these things allows you to then run tests on all of these sorts of things. So if things are dipping, okay, do I need to change up my headline? Or is there a way to, even if it's doing well, ways to, on the opposite of failure, to have more success, to say, okay, this is working for me. How do I improve it and make it even better? But as the world evolves, our businesses evolve with it. Outside factors that might just be impacting what consumers are doing and being able to adjust based on that. Because even if you set it and you're kind of on autopilot, like, okay, I looked at my numbers and we're flying, things are going to change. And so it's crucial to just stay on top of it to know what to do and when.
You can't make the most of something if you don't know what's actually working. And you also can't fix something if you don't know what's broken. And in order to know both of those things, you need to know your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The next couple are actually kind of calling back a little bit more to something we were talking about at the beginning, but really digging into your messaging. And this is not just because we both have copywriting backgrounds, but we can say definitively that your messaging is the most important part of your business. If you cannot effectively message what you have to offer and why someone should purchase it, they won't. It is very simple, and I don't want to scare anyone. But the great thing, there are resources. You can get help with it. But it is the truth. If you can't message effectively, you will not be able to sell. So that's kind of the bigger issue. But one of the mistakes that I see again and again and again is business owners not clearly differentiating themselves from the competition. The good news is there's plenty of opportunity for us all to be successful. The bad news is that every one of us has competition. There's somebody else out there offering something similar to what we are selling to our audiences. And if you can't explain to someone why they should buy from you instead of from someone else, they're not going to.
And just like we were talking about with the transformation earlier, that people buy transformations, is it very clear what that transformation is? And how is that transformation, to Nikki's point, different than your competition? Or how they get to that transformation going to be different than the competition? Do you offer something that makes it better, easier, faster than your competition? Do you offer additional support or additional insights that aren't offered by your competition?
Or is the way you teach it, you as a person, is the way that you teach or coach or however you want to put it, are you the differentiating point? That could very well be the case, but you need to make that very clear. And you also need to make it clear as to why working with you is the best experience, is that you'll get the best results from working with you.
And then, finally, earlier we had talked about selling a program that is crummy or just doesn't deliver what it promises on.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But I guess kind of maybe it's the quarter side of the coin, maybe not the full opposite side of the coin, but have you ever seen a coin? Debatable. You grew up with credit cards. Come on.
I kid because I love. Continue.
The other, I'm not even going to try to continue this analogy. It's not selling early enough. It's holding back your offer and waiting till it's perfect. And so talking about, thinking about deadlines, thinking about the phased approach. Do you have to have it perfect? Do you even have to have it done before you sell? And the answer is no. We have an entire episode about this that we will link to in the show notes. But there's likely a lot that you can start doing and selling and start making money and having income and having then the resources maybe to hire people to help you complete the course or to make that the back half of completing your course faster. Maybe you have a good chunk of it done. And so, obviously when you're selling your program to your customers, letting them know that, yes, there will be something for them to take action on and they'll have enough to work on in the meantime, and let them know that you'll be dripping out content as they go.
And by that same token, a mistake I see a lot of people make is that they get people on their list. And we've talked about it a lot before. I'm going to say it again, guys. When people first get on our list is when they're at that moment of peak excitement and when they are most motivated to get the result and to work with us. And what so many business owners do is they get them on the list and then they nurture them. I send my nurture sequence. And I think probably that has a lot to do with, number one, it's what we've been told to do. So no shame there, certainly no shame at all. But the second part of that, I think, is sometimes we get a little afraid to sell. Oh, we've got them on the list, but I don't want to sell them right away. I'll nurture them first, and then they'll like me, and then they'll purchase from me. But all that we're doing is we're burning up that interest, that activation energy, and they're losing motivation to purchase from us. And as we've said before, if they get on your list and they discover that they can't get that solution from you, they're not going to wait to get the solution from you for 3 months or 6 months or whenever your live launch is. now that they know a solution is possible, they're going to go buy it from your competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about like making purchases on Amazon. If I need, I bought a light bulb recently. It was like, oh, the one you want is out. Okay, great. I found another light bulb. What's the difference? And I got it, and now I have it, and I wasn't wait.
Exactly. Maybe it isn't the exact one you wanted, but this one will do.
Serves the purpose. Yep.
I was on a podcast interview a little bit earlier today, and we were talking about the live launch model and the concept of that we're the only industry that does that, right? And some of us do not do it at all, but we're the only industry that does it. And live launching is kind of like inviting someone into a store and being like, hey, welcome to the store. Look at all of these jackets. You can get these jackets in 6 months. Don't they look great? You're going to love it. They're so amazing. These are the best jackets ever. Come back in 6 months. You can buy them in 6 months. They're going to look at those jackets and go, oh, I like that jacket. And they're going to go to the next store and buy that jacket then because they want the solution. It's cold outside. They want the solution now. So is it possible for someone to make all of these mistakes? Yes, it is possible. What's more probable though, is that we make one or two, or we make one and then we fix that. We make another one and making mistakes is absolutely part of running a business. Absolutely. And none of us is going to do anything perfectly. But the problem comes in where we have mistakes and we just keep running with them, where we keep focusing on the things that aren't bringing in revenue, the busy, but we like them and they make us feel comfortable. We don't have to get out of our comfort zone when we do those things, when what really needs to be worked on is a different project. We need to pivot and work on a different project. Or like we were saying with it, I don't want to sell to people right away. I want to nurture them first. Well, first of all, you can nurture and sell at the same time, but letting that interest disappear, the not setting deadlines, not taking your business seriously, not learning your numbers. Any of these, if you dig in too deep of them, any of them could have such a massive negative impact on your business that it either keeps you from growing, keeps you from hitting your goals, or again, worst case scenario, keeps you from being able to keep your business open. Business it's not easy. It's not easy. It's absolutely worth it. The freedom and the fulfillment and the impact we have is absolutely worth it, but it's not necessarily easy. That said, as we've said before, and we'll say it again and again, there's also nothing magic to it. Yes, there can be serendipity. Yes, there can be the luck that happens, fortunate connections, that kind of thing. Absolutely. But when it really comes down to it, business is a matter of inputs and outputs, taking actions and seeing what the results are of those actions. And if the results weren't what they wanted to be, then we go back and we take different actions. But we have to keep taking those actions and we have to keep measuring the results. There's nothing magic here. If something isn't working, you got to change it. And if you're doing any of the things that we talked about in today's episode, you got to change it. So this would be a good time, I say with very much love and a ton of support. This would be a good time to maybe go back, listen to the episode, and do a little bit of business soul searching. Are there things here that the first time through, you're like, no, it's fine. We got that. We're good. We got that. Maybe listen through just one more time. Gently give yourself a little bit of grace because we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but listen through and maybe just be a little bit more rigorous in your self-assessment. And maybe there are some opportunities in here that you didn't hear the first time. Running a business is this funny mix of, being gentle with yourself for not being perfect, but also having to be kind of tough on yourself to get the difficult stuff done. And I have a hard time balancing those out, certainly. But this is one of those instances where you have to balance those out. Be gentle with yourself, but do some real soul searching.
Well, yeah, and some of these are kind of just like an audit too. It's part of the process, like focusing on elements that actually matter to your business. That's an ongoing process. Our team is constantly going back through our task list and saying, okay, which one of these made sense at the time when we scheduled out, but we need to put it in the parking lot right now. And there's just a constant review and refresh. And so it's always a good opportunity, even if business is going well for you, to kind of do a little check-in and audit, kind of like a haircut, looking at what's going on, making sure everything's trimmed up and looking fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still on path. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.